He was just a stranger in an old leather jacket, standing at the edge of a freezing highway. No one stopped, no one cared, until one act of kindness revealed that this man wasn't ordinary at all. He was someone sent for a reason. Before we begin, if you believe in humanity and miracles that walk among us, hit the subscribe button and join our community of real-life stories that touch the heart. It was a bright but cold morning in Colorado, one of those winter days when the sunlight is crisp but the air bites through your clothes. The mountains glistened with snow, and the roads shimmered with thin ice. People hurried to work with their coffee cups steaming, rushing through life as usual. For Daniel Carter, a 32-year-old construction foreman, it was supposed to be a normal Thursday. He had overslept, spilled coffee on his only clean shirt, and cursed the traffic that seemed endless. Life had been testing him lately. His company was cutting hours, his mother's health bills were piling up, and his old truck sounded like it could fall apart any minute. Still, Daniel kept going, because that's what his father had always taught him. When life gets heavy, you carry it anyway. As Daniel turned onto Highway 70, the morning sun reflected off the snow so brightly it made him squint. He drove slowly, radio humming quietly in the background. About 15 miles out, he saw something strange. A man walking alone along the shoulder of the road, wrapped in a worn-out brown leather jacket. No backpack, no gloves, just a man walking in the bitter cold. Daniel hesitated. He wasn't the type to pick up strangers. The world was too unpredictable for that, he told himself. But as he passed, he caught a glimpse of the man's face in the side mirror. Older, maybe in his 60s, gray beard, eyes tired but kind. Something inside Daniel made him slow down. Against his better judgment, he pulled over a few 100 feet ahead and rolled down the window. "You need a ride somewhere?" Daniel called out. The man smiled faintly, brushing snow off his jacket. "Only if you're heading toward Silverton," he said in a calm, steady voice. "That's about 20 miles up. Hop in," Daniel replied, pushing open the passenger door. The man climbed in slowly, his movements careful like he hadn't been in a warm car in days. Daniel noticed his hands, rough, cracked, and red from the cold. "Appreciate it," the man said, exhaling a sigh of relief. "Name's Frank, Daniel," he replied, pulling back onto the road. "You walking all the way from town?" "Started early," Frank said, gazing out the window. "Had to get to someone before it's too late." Daniel didn't press. He could tell there was more to the story, but silence felt easier. A few miles passed before Daniel asked, "So, who are you visiting in Silverton?" Frank smiled softly. "My daughter. Haven't seen her in 20 years. Daniel's grip on the wheel tightened. 20 years? "Yeah," Frank said. "Made some mistakes. Lost her when she was little. I've been trying to make it right ever since." Daniel nodded slowly, unsure what to say. He thought of his own family, how his dad had died when he was 18, and how he still missed the man every day. "You got kids?" Frank asked, glancing at him. Daniel shook his head. "No, just me and my mom. She's not doing well." "Take care of her," Frank said quietly. "You never know when your last day together will come." Something in his tone made Daniel look at him differently. Frank wasn't just talking, he was warning. About halfway to Silverton, Daniel's truck started to sputter. The check engine light blinked, and the steering wheel jerked slightly. He cursed under his breath. "Not today," he muttered, pulling over. Steam rose from under the hood. Frank leaned forward. "Looks like she's running hot." Daniel popped the hood and stepped out into the icy wind. As he lifted it, smoke billowed out. "Radiator hose," he said, frustrated. "It's cracked again." Frank joined him, still calm despite the freezing air. "Got some tape or clamps?" Daniel shook his head. "Just my luck." Frank reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small roll of duct tape. "Always keep this handy. Fixes more than you think." Together they patched the hose. Daniel noticed Frank's hands again, steady, sure, like he'd done this 1,000 times before. Within minutes, the truck roared back to life. Daniel laughed in relief. "Was I picked up the right guy?" Frank grinned. "Sometimes angels don't have wings. They wear jackets." Daniel laughed at the line, but something about the way Frank said it gave him chills. As they continued driving, Daniel realized they were passing a spot he hadn't seen since childhood, a diner with a red roof that his dad used to take him to. He hadn't been there in years. "You mind if we stop?" Daniel asked. "Could use a coffee." "Sure," Frank said with a knowing smile. Inside the diner, it felt like stepping back in time. The smell of pancakes and bacon filled the air. A waitress in her 50s greeted them warmly. "Coffee?" she asked. "2 cups," Daniel said. "And whatever's fresh." As they waited, Daniel noticed Frank looking around the room like he'd been there before. "Something familiar?" Daniel asked. Frank nodded slowly. "Used to stop here when I was younger, before everything went wrong." The waitress brought their food, and as she set the plates down, she froze. Her eyes widened as she looked at Frank. "Frank," she whispered. Frank looked up slowly. "Maggie." Daniel glanced between them, confused. The woman's hands trembled. You're my father." The diner fell silent. Daniel felt his stomach drop. He looked from Frank to the woman, realizing the truth. The daughter he'd been trying to find was standing right there. Tears filled Frank's eyes. "I didn't know you were here, Maggie. I was on my way to find you." She stepped closer, still shocked. "You disappeared, Dad. 20 years I thought you were dead." Frank's voice cracked. "I wanted to come back, but I thought I didn't deserve to." Maggie wiped her eyes. "You don't get to decide that. I lost Mom waiting for you." Daniel felt like he was intruding, but he couldn't move. He watched as 2 lives that had been apart for decades tried to find words again. Finally, Maggie's expression softened. "Sit down," she said quietly. "Let's talk." They talked for hours. About mistakes, regrets, forgiveness. Daniel sat quietly, sipping his coffee, feeling like he was witnessing something sacred. When it was time to leave, Frank turned to Daniel. "You were meant to stop. If you hadn't, I never would have found her." Daniel shook his head. "No. I just did what anyone would do." Frank smiled. "Not everyone would." Maggie hugged her father tightly before he left with Daniel. "Come back tomorrow," she said. "We'll start over." On the drive back, Frank was quiet. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the snow gold and pink. "You ever think everything happens for a reason?" Daniel asked. Frank smiled faintly. "Every day. We just don't always see the reason right away." When they reached Silverton, Frank asked to be dropped off near an old church. "You sure you'll be all right?" Daniel asked. Frank nodded. "More than all right." "Thank you, son." Daniel watched him walk up the steps, then drove away. The next day, Daniel decided to stop by the diner again to check on them. Maggie was there, wiping down tables. "Hey," Daniel said. "How's your dad?" She paused. "My dad?" Daniel frowned. "Frank, the man from yesterday." Maggie's face went pale. "Sir, you must be mistaken. My father passed away 10 years ago." Daniel blinked, confused. "No, he was here. You hugged him, you talked for hours." Tears welled in her eyes. "I think you met someone else." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. He turned and looked out the window. Across the street, the church bells were ringing. He drove to the church. The door was open, but no one was inside. On the pew, he saw a worn-out brown leather jacket. Inside the pocket was the same duct tape roll Frank had used, and a photo of Maggie as a child, tucked inside. Daniel sat there for a long time, staring at the jacket, realizing what Frank had meant. Sometimes angels don't have wings, they wear jackets. He took the jacket home and hung it by his door. Whenever life got hard, he'd look at it and remember that day. The stranger who appeared out of nowhere, mended more than a radiator, and vanished once his mission was done. From that day on, Daniel stopped questioning miracles. He just kept his heart open for the next time one walked by. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to appreciate the people who show up when you least expect them. They might just be the angels you were waiting for. Tell us in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching this story?